your goal is to be healthy and happy and have a longer life, to be more energetic, to have more muscle mass, and to lose weight, a better strategy is to do a lot of walking, orchestrate your diet around achieving metabolic flexibility so you burn more fat, whether you're sitting at your desk or walking or even running, lifting some weights to build muscle mass, and yes, sprinting once in a while.
Mark, it is so great to be joined by you today. You've been a massive inspiration for me. You probably won't know this, but when I left, I was originally a corporate lawyer many years ago. And when I left my career, you were one of the first people that I turned to in terms of like correcting or optimizing my health and getting over burnout and all the things I was struggling with. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to welcome you to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Angela. It's great to be here, and I appreciate that acknowledgement. I love hearing those kinds of stories. Those are really what, that's what we call the psychic income that comes from being in this space.
That's what you call the what, sorry?
Psychic income, right?
Yes.
It's just, right.
Yeah, no, it's, and when you make a difference to people's lives like that, I think it just feels incredible. So there's so many things I want to talk to you about. I mean, the image I keep recalling to my mind recently, you put out so much great content on Instagram, which is where I follow a lot of your stuff. Is I just still have this image in my mind of, I think it was you walking some months ago between two trees on a rope. And just barefoot. And that to me was just the epitome of someone who really has mastered health, because of all the things that you're demonstrating there in terms of your physical fitness, but also your balance. What would you say are the keys to health and longevity?
Well, it's interesting. You just identified one of them as balance. And we'll get into what that means a little bit later. But the keys to health and longevity are, I think, number one, just feeling good every day. Look, it makes little sense to be chasing numbers, blood work, scale, body fat percentages if you don't feel good, right? You can have all of your blood markers and all of your biomarkers in alignment, and if you feel like crap, then none of this matters. It just, we're here to experience the fullest life possible. So health and longevity starts with feeling good. Now, yes, you have to eat right in order to optimize energy. And that's a great example of, I've got a light that's flickering in the background here. Let me just spin this around a second and see if that's going to make any sort of difference anyway. Sorry about that. There we go. So feeling good. You have to eat right. So you have to be able to burn body fat. You have to be able to access energy all day long. And you do this through eating well and moving appropriately. So a great diet, a good diet, adequate movement, which includes lots of low-level activity throughout the day, moving through ranges and planes of motion as much as you can. We are designed as upright bipedal creatures. Our bodies expect us to walk a lot, to move a lot, to just crawl, to climb, to do all these sorts of behaviors that we seem to have lost with civilization here, and then to sprint once in a while, to go all out once a week or something like that, to get the heart rate way up there, to challenge the homeostasis of modern sedentary living, and to go to the gym and lift weights twice a week. So in terms of movement, those are the three pillars: lots of low-level activity, some lifting of heavy weights, strength training in the gym, and a little bit of sprinting. In terms of food, it's eating real food. It's pretty simple, right? I mean, if you cut out the crap, if you cut out the sugars, the added sugars in foods, the processed foods, the refined grains, the industrial seed oils, you come down to a list of meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, vegetables, fruit, some starchy tubers. If you just stick to those food categories, you will have dialed in your diet perfectly. We talk about sleep. Sleep is, it's been talked a lot about in the last 5 years, but sleep is really a critical factor for repair, for growth, for stress management, and ultimately for longevity. So those are what I would say the three things that we can really focus most on when we're looking for health and longevity. And then we get to balance. And, this image that you had of me on the slack line, I had a slack line in my house in Malibu between two trees. And my everyday throughout my workday, I would break for 10 minutes every hour or so, walk outside, hop on the slack line, work on my balance, work on my proprioception, work on fine motor skills, because that slack line really does teach the sort of the fine motor skills that you don't normally get just walking around or just running or just lifting in the gym. And balance, because of its because of what happens as we get older, as we age, balance becomes even more critical. You know, the sort of prototypical end of life story is somebody who woke up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and tripped over the cat or something and broke their hip and wound up in the hospital and had pneumonia and died. Mm. And that's a sequence of events that started with lack of balance. So balance is one of those things that we can work on, we can refine. I spend, I don't know, probably all told, half an hour a week working on balance. And for me, my favorite balance exercise is, maybe you've done this, is arms crossed, eyes closed, stand on one foot, and see how long you can stand on one foot with arms crossed and eyes closed. And then switch feet.
One, actually. It always changes the game, doesn't it? As soon as you
close
it totally
your
eyes.
does. Closing eyes
and you
changes
get your
the game.
Like, yeah.
And then you have to use the intrinsic muscles of your feet to, and of course, we'll talk later on about how critical foot health is to overall health and wellness, and to balance in particular. But those little tricks like that, which don't take a long time, are essential to maintaining this vitality, this vibrancy throughout life, so that you maintain balance and you maintain proprioception. That is your awareness of where you are in the space around you. And the fine motor skills I just talked about, the balancing skills. And it doesn't take much time, and it's fun, and it's something you can do. Like, I do it between sets in the gym when I'm lifting. Like, if I'm going to give myself a 2-minute rest between a heavy lifting set, I'll do the closed eyes, arms crossed, one leg, up, switch legs, and just kind of work on that and feel all of the little intrinsic muscles and the stabilizer muscles in your hips. It's a pretty cool experiment. So, diet, exercise, sleep, balance. We can talk about play and the importance of play in terms of health and longevity. We tend to discount play as we get older as something that, save that, that's for kids. Adults shouldn't play. No, adults should play as much as possible. And I don't mean, in necessarily some frivolous outdoor activity. It could be playing games, could be having fun with your grandchildren, just laughing and joking and chasing them around the yard. Whatever. Play is a critical part of maintaining a healthy, youthful attitude, a healthy outlook. It has been proven to impact immune system health and strength. So, years ago, I wrote this book called The Primal Blueprint. And in that, I outlined the behaviors that I thought everyone should probably pay attention to, the behaviors that crafted the gene set that we have today, that crafted the recipe that we all have, that wants us to be strong and lean and fit and happy and healthy and productive and enjoy life. And as long as we are providing the behaviors that cause the appropriate genes to turn on and build those proteins and prevent other genes from turning on that make us sick and decrepit and moody and depressed and hangry, if we can identify what those behaviors are, we will be well on our way to achieving that healthy longevity that we all seek. I think we cannot discount the concept of pain management. One of the things that affects people as they get older is pain and stiffness. And how do you go on in the face of increasing amounts of pain, whether it's arthritic pain or whether it's just general systemic inflammation throughout the body? Pain is a real issue for a lot of people. So the ways in which we can address the pain relief become more and more critical as we get older. I don't mean to co-opt the whole conversation here, Angela.
I'm just wondering where I've got quite a few questions just on this.
Yeah. But I just, for instance, I just had my hip replaced 12 days ago. And I did so after 2 years of mild pain, and then the last 6 months of pretty chronic pain, which made me limp and really compromised my life and my activity. I got the hip replaced again 12 days ago today, and I just did half an hour on the elliptical. I walked 3 miles yesterday. I did a leg day the day
I
before.
saw your video. I just say it's extraordinary. And many
Yeah,
people wouldn't be able to sit here actually even and do an interview, right? Just
yeah,
even the anesthetic alone
yes,
involves recovery. It's
yeah. So
formidable.
so part of the point I'm making is I am pain free now. Like I was immediately pain free after this hip replacement, other than the localized soreness of them cutting into my body and
Yeah.
pulling the hip bone out and sawing it off and putting it. But no, I'm the hip itself is like pain free, and I'm remembering how critical the absence of pain and stiffness and soreness is to a quality life. So to the extent that you can um, access a pain-free life and lifestyle that allows you to move more and to maintain muscle mass or build muscle mass and improve insulin sensitivity because you're active and you're moving around a lot, which when you improve insulin sensitivity decreases your risk for metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, even cancer. So all of these things kind of work together, and you can't really isolate one as the key. So diet, exercise, sleep, play, balance, pain-free, all of these little elements contribute to a longer, healthy, much more enjoyable life.
Yeah. And I want to dive into some of the details around those. I guess one question that I have just looking at it, because I think many people might listen to this and think, I'm really busy, like I was as a lawyer, and how do I fit this in? The reality is you've lived this healthy lifestyle while building a number of successful companies. Obviously, it's the High Performance Health podcast, so we're looking at health and high performance. When we're looking at it from a performance perspective, I've found, for example, play actually encourages creativity. So having those breaks helps with, brain health, right? And just the way I can bring that cognition and things. But I'm curious, as you were building your companies along the way, were there periods of your life where you sacrificed any of these things, or have you always found that optimizing your health has enhanced your performance and so you've prioritized it? How have you gone about that along the way?
Yeah, I think 100% that I think prioritizing health, energy. Um, an entrepreneur needs to be creative, energetic, can't afford to get sick, and all of those require some attention to that other aspect of life, which is movement, activity, diet, social interactions, whether it's with friends or coworkers or family. So when I was building my businesses, I found time to work out every day. And by the way, working out, it doesn't, the actual workout itself doesn't have to be some energy sucking, time sucking effect of every single day. I would find 30 or 45 minutes every day where I'd really focus on doing work, but then I'd move around a lot the rest of the day. I'd be on the phone I'd be taking phone calls, pacing around up and down my street. I'd go out and take these breaks on the Slack line, which are play. Which for me, that was play. That's creative. So I'm stuck. I'm writing an article for a blog post, or I'm writing some advertising copy. I'm stuck on something. I go out and play for 10 minutes. Next thing you know, it comes into my brain like, oh my God, that's a beautiful, wonderful creative idea that I just had that I would not have had I stayed at my desk and kind of beat myself up over a blank sheet of paper. So
true.
As I said in the beginning of this conversation, what really matters is how do you feel? Are you enjoying your life today? Are you enjoying the fruits of your labor? Are you enjoying relationships that you have? Are you enjoying the food you're eating? I want people to extract the greatest amount of enjoyment out of every possible moment, not 10 years in the future because you busted your ass and built a business and now have money to do it, but enjoying the journey along the way, which means paying attention to your own health, working out, eating right, paying attention to your social relationships, getting enough sleep. And you'll find, and I know you know this as a former attorney, you might be billing on the 10th of the hour, but most of your creativity happens in little brief moments of like, oh my God, this is the argument I'm going to use in the litigation, or this is the track I'm going to take. And now it's just a matter of filling in the blanks. But it took the creativity of one brief moment, not an 8-hour billable day, in order to arrive at that. That's a result of you taking care of your health, your mental wellness, your stress reduction, your social awareness, and all of the other things that come to play here. So as an entrepreneur, I do not tell young people that you have to grind. You got to grind it out. You got to put in 80-hour weeks and 90-hour weeks. No, you have to work smart. You have to just find those moments where you're going to an hour and a half a day. Like if you can carve out an hour and a half of just good, solid, creative, focused work in an 8-hour workday, you are way ahead of most people. Most people, particularly those who go to an office, they're kind of stuck in this like clocking in, clocking out, getting their work done, can't wait till 5 o'clock rolls around, get in the car and drive home. When I was building Primal Kitchen, and we have 105 employees now, I would say 80% of them work remote. I don't care how much time they spend at their jobs. What I care about are results. And so if they can be purposeful and contributing and results driven, then if they spend a good hour and a half or 2 hours a day, and that's really the main amount of time that they're actually focused on their work, I'd much rather have them go take a walk or go to the gym or do something and then have those sparks of creativity while they're doing that than to say, oh, I have to stay here at my desk for 8 hours and hopefully something brilliant will come to me. Does that make sense?
100%, 100%. And it's funny because I've experienced it both ways, but as you were saying there, well, certainly when I was a lawyer, the most innovative structures and things that I would come up and solutions or like negotiations, for example, is like a game of poker, right? You've got to be ahead of the opponent. That was when I was well rested. And yet we were conditioned to obviously like pull off all-nighters, weekends, crazy hours. That's how it was. And then, designing my business now on my own terms, as I've been doing for the last 5 years, has been markedly different. And I can see that. And I can see that there are limitations to that grind. It makes perfect sense to me. It's certainly how I've built my businesses now. With the nutrition, I know that I was listening when I was researching for this interview today, I was listening to you talk about your blood work and how optimal it is, regardless of eating red meat. This is something people get confused about. Just explain for us in terms of, because I think I heard you say that you eat red meat twice a day, and yet we have so much about red meat and the dangers of it. And, when you're listening to that, like I always hear it half in one ear, right? I know, for example, my kids love red meat. It's that's what they want to eat most of the week. They just do. Tell us about red meat and how.
Well, humans evolved eating animal food, animal products, other animals. And there's no disputing that. There are groups of people who, claim to be animal welfare protectionist and thus are eating a vegan diet. It's a substandard, suboptimal diet for sure. Meat, whether it's beef, pork, lamb, chicken, turkey, fish, duck, provides the greatest source of high quality nutrition available to us. So I focus my eating strategy on quality protein at every meal. I'm a result of 20 years of experimentation, starting with the paleo movement and the primal blueprint, which was my own particular variation of that, through a ketogenic diet, which was a much lower carb, relatively high fat, moderate protein diet, through currently, which I would describe as carnivore-ish. In other words, I center my diet around the sources of animal protein that I have for the 2 meals I eat a day. I only eat 2 meals a day. I'm able to do that because I've trained my body to become really good at burning fat. We call that metabolic flexibility. And that's available to anyone. Everyone is born with this recipe that wants to extract most of your energy from stored body fat. But because of the diets, the ways of eating that we incorporate, that we learn from our parents or we learn from food pyramids or government programs, we tend to never get to the point where we're calling upon our bodies to tap into our own stored body fat. So much of what my educational focus has been over the past 20 years is teaching people how the body works, how it's easy to develop metabolic flexibility, but you have to be willing to cut carbs, get rid of processed foods. You have to be willing to experiment with periods of not eating. And what I tell people is, you don't force yourself to go hungry, but see how long you can go. Once you've shifted your diet around and removed a lot of carbohydrate and sugar from your diet, see how long you can go without feeling hunger, without the sensation of hunger. And the longer you can go, the more that's indicative of the fact that your body has started to learn how to burn fat and how to tap into your own stored body fat, so that when you do skip a meal, you never run out of energy. You have all the energy you need, and you are burning off your own stored body fat. So you tend not to accumulate stored body fat over a lifetime. For me, the easiest way was to focus on meat. Now, over the decades, we've seen very conflicting studies about meat being not as healthy for the average person. These studies have, in my opinion, been flawed over the years. They've been erroneously associated with other bad lifestyle habits. It's never been proven that meat is bad for you. It's only been proven that meat is really good for you in the right context. Meat is good for you if you're not eating industrial seed oils, if you're not eating a lot of sugar, if you're not eating processed meats or deep fried meats. But if you're eating quality sources of beef and lamb and pork and chicken and turkey and fish, then it is the best possible source of protein, bar none. Now we have hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions, who have tried this keto or this carnivore diet, who have amazing results as a result of having trained their body to derive most of their energy throughout the day from their own stored body fat. And in almost all cases, it starts with a protein-centric diet, and a protein-centric diet, almost of necessity, has to involve some form of meat.
Do you, and in terms of looking at things like saturated fat intake, often we're given guidelines of keeping that low. Is that something that or do you just like eat the whole animal, eat it with fat, skin on the chicken, and have it as it was intended to be?
Yeah, I mean, for decades, there was this thing that, the best source of protein was boneless, skinless chicken. I mean, there are very few ways in which you can prepare that without it tasting like
rubber.
The rubber, exactly. No, chicken with skin. Skin is a great source of collagen, peptides, and obviously collagen is not obviously, but I'll tell your audience, collagen is one of the most important macronutrients we could be getting. I have not paid attention to saturated fat. Now, I don't seek it out. I don't go, okay, I'm just going to eat a stick of butter like some people did during the early days of keto. They would make a big deal of just eating butter. No, I eat the saturated fat that is with the meat that I'm eating. I don't pay attention to it. I certainly don't count saturated fat grams. I think saturated fat in the appropriate quantities and context is a very healthy nutrient. In many cases, much healthier than polyunsaturated fats. And when I talk about my blood work, I found a cardiologist who is my main primary care physician. And when he looks at my blood work, he goes, "Oh my God, Mark," he said, "I would kill for your blood work." Well, my total cholesterol, which in U.S. numbers is usually 245 to 250 total cholesterol, and that would be a red flag for almost any physician who is classically trained to prescribe statin drugs to lower cholesterol. But with my doctor's case, he understands. He's done the research, and he goes, "Yeah, my HDL is 85, which is very high and protective. My triglycerides are between 45 and 70. My A1C is 4.8, which is another marker of inflammation. My arteries are clean. I've had the scans, so there is nothing standing in like my risk for cardiovascular disease is essentially zero." despite the fact that I eat a lot of meat, I eat an appreciable amount of saturated fat. It's just, I think
Which at 71 is no easy feat, right? It's pretty amazing.
Pardon me?
Which is, I think
Oh,
I
at
heard you
71, yeah, 71
it's
years old.
pretty
Yeah,
amazing
yeah,
that you've achieved that,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
testament to your process.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, as I tell people, don't necessarily chase the blood work. It's more important that like sometimes people will say my blood work is, my doctor says that my cholesterol is a little too high and I should be taking a statin drug. And in the U.S., I know people who are taking statins because their total cholesterol is 205 or 210. Look, cholesterol is probably arguably the most important molecule in the human body, and the body makes 13 or 1400 milligrams a day, regardless of how much you take in terms of your diet. So it's not like dietary cholesterol is going to, move that needle very much. But what we do see happening is we see vegans who then eat no saturated fat, and they see their total cholesterol drop, and they think, "Oh my God, I'm winning! I've dropped, I've lowered my risk factor. See, it works." Well, first of all, I would say that cholesterol is not the proximate cause of heart disease. It's as many people have heart attacks who have low cholesterol as have high cholesterol. So there's really not any sort of direct association there. People who have really low cholesterol die of all-cause mortality at a greater rate because of the low cholesterol, and they tend to have greater issues later on in life. Cholesterol is involved in the creation of bile, which is a emulsifier for fats, and so when you're eating meat or fats, your body produces bile in the gallbladder, and that is a digestive enzymatic process. So it makes sense that if you don't eat animal products, your body would say, I'm not going to make any more bile because we don't use it for anything in that regard. And so, yes, your cholesterol drops because your body's going, since we're not making bile, we don't need that much cholesterol to be making it. And so we'll lower the cholesterol. But that's not necessarily a good thing. And but people, but there are vegans and vegetarians who are like raising their hand going, see, I'm winning the risk factor because I've lowered my cholesterol. But it's really not how the body works. The body's a very complex mechanism. Cholesterol is involved in the production of vitamin D. It's like the major working molecule in neurons and nerve cells, and most of the brain is comprised of cholesterol.
100%. Do you know what's a scary thing that I saw with my parents? And they're of a generation, right, where it was like antibiotics was such a revolutionary thing in terms of how long people live. So I think they trusted pharmaceutical companies more. And my mum, I remember being given statins right up until the point that she was, and it was all about lowering cholesterol for her and my dad, right up until the point that she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, at which point they turned around and said, oh, by the way, maybe we should take you off the statins. And now we have this secondary problem, right, which is arguably a lot worse potentially. And it's really sad to watch. And it was at that point that all the standard advice that should have been given way back when the drugs were being prescribed is, by the way, optimize your nutrition in this way. Make sure you're really like regulating your circadian rhythm and sleeping better. Manage your stress. That affects the brain. We'll take you off statins. Go get some exercise. Lift weights. And it's like, why did we get to that point for the medical team to issue that advice? Do you see what I mean? It's scary.
And it's scary, and it's a standard protocol, right? It's the standard operating procedure of most medical systems, which, I think in many cases you'll find physicians who are recently educated, who've done a lot of research, who've done the reading, and now have shifted their own way of thinking, but many more who are sticking to the protocol from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, or 40 years ago that they learned in medical school and then got reinforced by the drug companies who would send representatives to the office to remind them that this drug is good for this and that drug is good for that.
It's sad. Let's talk about, before we move to walking, which I'm really interested in, just you touched on there around collagen. I think this
Yes.
is really important. I know you're a big fan of collagen. And in terms of its protection for joint health, there's also the bonuses of skin health if we want to look younger at the same time. What do you advocate there? Do you take a multi-collagen so that you're getting multiple different forms? And I know I've heard you talk about taking quite a bit of collagen. Have you
Yeah.
found that to be one of the things that's helped you stay as pain-free as possible?
Yeah, I think for sure. My initial aha moment with collagen was probably 15 years ago. I was getting Achilles tendinosis from. I play this game called Ultimate Frisbee, and it's a very fast-paced sprinting game with lots of sprinting and jumping and things like that. My Achilles were starting to get thicker and sore and tender, tender to the touch. I mean, I could get a massage, and then I'd say stay away from my Achilles tendons. They're way too sore. I went to a orthopedist who said, "Oh, we can fix that. We can open you up. We slit your leg down the back. We can scrape the tissue off your tendons or Achilles. We can cast you for 3 months, and then you'll do 9 months of rehab, and you'll be 85%." I'm like, "Nah, I'm not having that." So I went back to the books, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is just another example of something I missed. Should have been obvious to me." But um, over the past several decades, the amount of collagen available in the diet has decreased. In the 60s and 70s, we had Jello. We ate all parts of the animal, nose to tail. We ate the skin on chicken. We ate the gristle parts of beef. We boiled the carcass down or the bones down to make stock for broth or for whatever. Your mom probably took Knox gelatin for skin, hair, and nails. It was a little sippy drink that women had in the 50s and 60s. But in the 80s, in the 90s and aughts, we had no source of collagen in the diet. Chicken with skin was kind of out the door because fat was bad, and so we'd have this boneless, skinless chicken breast available as a protein source. We started eating only the choice cuts of beef, so not the prime rib, the sirloin. When we trim off the fat and leave the rest behind, we weren't really making bone broths or stock to any appreciable amount. Jello had been vilified for the amount of sugar it had in it. And the next thing you know, we go to 2 decades of not having any collagen peptides. Well, the Achilles tendon, all the tendons in the body, all the ligaments, cartilage, connective tissue, fascia, skin, hair, and nails, bones, everything. Like collagen as a protein is the most prevalent type of protein in the human body. And it needs certain building blocks to repair itself, collagen peptides. Now, you can find these peptides, which are amino acids, in steak, in chicken, in vegetables, but they're not in the amounts, they're not in the appropriate ratios that you would find them in chicken stock, bone broth, chicken skin, eating nose to tail. So back to my story, when I realized that, oh my God, I haven't been giving my body the raw materials it needs to rebuild my aching Achilles after I've been stressing them in sprinting and in running these games. So I went and I looked at what was available, and I started taking a collagen supplement. And lo and behold, in 4 months, the Achilles tendinosis in both Achilles was resolved. It was completely resolved. So I didn't have the surgery. I didn't want the surgery. Thank God I didn't get the surgery. And I saw, oh my God, this is exactly what's happening in so many cases around the world. People don't get enough collagen. They need this supplement because they're not having access to it in their regular food. Now, if we had access to it in regular food, I'd say no need to supplement. So in my case, I was taking 20, 30 grams a day of this collagen supplement. And I was so impressed by what it did. I said, I'm going to make my own collagen supplement and sell it as part of my product line, my supplement line, and my food line. Now, to answer your question, I pretty much take bovine collagen. I don't really do mixes. There's type 1, type 2, type 3 collagens. There's some marine collagen and collagen from poultry. But I take mostly bovine collagen, and it works very well for me. I think all types of collagen are Uh, the only difference is the relative ratios of these di and tripeptides. Now, these di and tripeptides, because they're uh, found so frequently in other forms of collagen in animals, they tend to cross the gut barrier as a sole entity. They don't get cleaved and become their separate amino acids and then circulate in the bloodstream that way. They tend to cross the gut barrier as di 3 and or 2 and tripeptides.
Interesting. I mean, I remember reading Dr. Kate Shanahan's work on this and just how we needed to eat like meat on the bone and things like that, and bone broths and things, and how that also contributed to like facial formation and jawline and things like that. And it's I was raised actually on nose to tail, bone broth, everything. My mom would order the whole animal and had quite a straight like jaw, and teeth. And I've done a similar thing with my children to the extent I can. Not quite. They're not quite eating the heart and brain curries that I used to, but
Yeah.
It's definitely made a difference. And obviously, like it made a huge difference, right, to the way that you're aging. I want to talk about walking because I know you have a book coming out in January, Born to Walk. You've done a huge amount of research in this area. I personally feel just from a mental health perspective, so many problems can be solved on a good walk. It's just creative thinking and ideas. What have you found are the main benefits to health from walking?
Well, the benefits are myriad. I mean, the human body, as a bipedal creature, we're literally designed to walk. We're designed to move. We're designed to be moving a lot and frequently throughout the day. We don't have 4 legs that allow us to stand in one place and not fall over. So just having, only 2 feet upon which to stand means we sort of have to move a lot to regain balance and to keep. But not just mood is elevated by walking, but the lymphatic system requires movement in that regard. Slow, easy, non-ballistic movement to optimize the lymphatic system to clear toxins. Digestion really improves with low-level aerobic activity, much of which can be found in the form of walking. The book, Born to Walk, arose from my recognition that this running boom of the last 50 years has been a disaster. It's been wholly inappropriate for all but 2% of the population. Most people should not be running, at least as their primary focus in terms of a health or a longevity strategy. In fact, it's in many cases antithetical to health and longevity for overweight people or ill-adapted people to be running. One of the problems is that the shoe industry has created this marketing hype around running, around it being this be-all and end-all of exercise protocols, that it being the best thing you can do for your body. It's not. But the fact that the industry continues to create thicker and thicker, more cushioned shoes, which enable people who are ill-adapted to running to go out and run more miles because they can't feel the immediate trauma of the impact to their feet. Like if these same people were running barefoot, they'd give up after 20 feet with their heel striking and their poor form. So where am I going with this? I think that one of the things with the book Born to Walk is I'm giving runners permission to walk again. I'm telling people that if your strategy, if your goal is to be healthy and happy and long and have a longer life, to be more energetic, to have more muscle mass, and to lose weight, a better strategy is to do a lot of walking, orchestrate your diet around achieving metabolic flexibility so you burn more fat, whether you're sitting at your desk or walking or even running, lifting some weights to build muscle mass, and yes, sprinting once in a while. And sprinting doesn't always mean running. It just means getting your heart rate to a high level for 20 seconds a couple of times in a workout once a week. But Born to Walk, it goes back. We retrace the running boom as having been like inappropriate. Like most people in the 70s who ran. They ran because they were runners. They self-selected to be runners. Like, until you read the books on jogging and the book Born to Run, which was later on, you would never choose to go jogging if you were an overweight person. It's like, why would I do that? It hurts. It's no fun. It's like, why would I even choose to jog? And plus the shoes were thin shoes. So everybody who ran in the 70s was a runner. They were self-selected to be a runner. And then it wasn't until...
You see that in schools, right? From when they're a very young age, people self-select. There are some kids, very few of them, who just love running and they're just really, really good at it. But the vast majority are like, I don't want to do cross country. I don't like
No. That's a great example. There are people who love running and should run. I was one. I was a runner. I loved running. It was an amazing life for me. I was one of the best marathon runners in the country. And I will tell you that I have not run a mile in 30 years. Because once I got past that and I realized that it was tearing me apart. Running is catabolic. Running tears down muscle tissue. Now, if you do it once a week as part of a broad-based strategy of lots of walking, a little bit of sprinting, some weightlifting, some organized classes or whatever, and then once a week you run 5 or 6 miles, great. That's a perfect application, because humans were born to walk. We were not born to run metronomically at 8 or 9 minute miles day in and day out. We were born to walk. We were born to be able to run once in a while as a result of the rest of the things we do in our life. But to do this day in and day out it cannibalizes muscle tissue. It is usually done at a pace that is way too stressful for the average person. So most people who run are, they have to prepare for it and gird up to go out and struggle and suffer for 35 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever they're running. They get back to the house, they're exhausted. They've burned through a lot of glycogen. They haven't really burned that much fat. Yes, so they burn a lot of calories, but it doesn't matter, because when you burn glycogen calories, the stored sugar in your muscles, all that does is signal your brain, I got to eat more. I got to eat more tonight to prepare for if I have to go run tomorrow. If you walk, you burn 100% fat, right? And depending on how fast you walk, there's a point at which you can walk, up a hill on a treadmill or with a backpack or a weight vest on, where you can have your heart rate maxed out. So you can walk at a very high rate of output if you want. What we talk about in the book is where's that sweet spot where runners who are not getting the results they want from their running program, in other words, they have the same 15 or 25 pounds to lose after having been a runner for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they're frustrated and they get injured because they're doing this activity with bad form. Where's the point at which they could walk mostly and burn mostly fat and not tap into those glycogen stores, and then be able to go to the gym and lift weights and tone their bodies up and achieve better strength and power and muscle mass, and then sprint once in a week. And the sprinting is really what cuts you up. So you have, one hand, you have the low level activity, which is zone 1 or zone 2 is what they call it these days. And then you have the high level activity, the sprinting, which is zone 5. And when you do enough of those, then let's say you still want to run. I'm like, go ahead and run with good form, run with minimalist shoes. And when your form breaks down, walk. And if your form breaks down after 3 minutes, walk. And then once you've recovered from that and you say, I feel like running again, run 100, 200 steps, 300, but only run with good form. That's the way you should develop into a runner. Now, if you're a self-selected ectomorph who enjoys pain, who has a high VO2 max, go for it. But the only people who really benefit from a serious running program are competitive runners. Everyone else would be so much better served cutting it, taking a step back and going, okay, I'm going to walk more. I'm going to sprint once in a while. I'm going to lift weights. And I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to get injured, because nobody gets injured walking. Pretty much nobody gets injured walking. Running, 50% of all runners are injured every year. And at any one point in time, right now, 25% of all people who call themselves runners are injured. That's a horrible statistic.
It's horrible.
And a lot of it is due to the shoes, to the footwear. The footwear is encouraging bad form because it's got this thick, cushiony, padded bottom, this sole with a raised heel that makes you think like you're running on clouds or on air, when in fact all it's doing is imparting all of the micro trauma up the kinetic chain to the ankles or the knees or the hips or the lower back. And so people get injured as a result of this. I think this book is going to really change the way people look at running. It's going to give people permission to walk and just say, you know what? I tried the running. It didn't work for me. Now I'm on a path to improved health, longevity, general well-being, overall fitness.
Do you know, it'd be great if, and I think you're right. I think it will do that. I've tested it both ways. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because during COVID, I got myself a running coach and I was like, oh, I feel like I should do this running thing. And I'm naturally very lean. I lift a few times a week. I do the sprinting that you talk about. And I also walk a ton. And that keeps my body composition, my insulin sensitivity, everything in check. I don't have any of the belly fat that a woman of my age is meant to be getting. And so it works super well. I did this running period for only 3 months. I was never in so much pain. My body composition changed. I was now accumulating fat around my abdomen. And it was just awful, right? This was 3-4 years ago. So I absolutely agree with you. I think the difficulty, isn't it, is persuading people out of it. And many people, as you say, it's not that they even enjoy the run, but when they come back, they like the endorphins that they've got from being out.
Exactly. People say I love running. I'm like, you don't love running. You love having run and you love calling yourself a runner. But
True.
While you're running, tell me that you are smiling and enjoying the whole thing. And people say, well, I love to put on the headphones and I like to go to, I'm like, okay, that's proof that you don't love running. If you loved running that much, you would not wear headphones. You would be out enjoying all of the inputs, all of the sensations, all of the little breathing patterns, noticing your gait and your stride, making corrections in it. So the fact that you have to wear headphones and listen to banger music while you're running is one of the first indications that you don't really love it that much. It's an escape for you. And I don't mind people having an escape. I mean, look, everybody needs their escape, but it's not a positive, necessarily a positive sort of form of escape or meditation. Now, the fact that your body composition changed, Angela, is really critical and indicative of what happened. So now you went from a kinder, gentler, walking-based routine with a little bit of sprints and some weightlifting thrown in. You have ideal body composition. Now you go to focusing on running. Your body, because you're running at a pace that's higher than you should be working out on a regular daily basis, your body's in stress. And it produces a stress hormone, cortisol. I know you know a lot about cortisol. Cortisol, as a short-term stressor, is very important to the body. We need it, but as a chronic overproduction of cortisol as a result of running day in and day out, it prompts the body to store body fat, and cortisol is that catabolic hormone. Cortisol tears down muscle tissue, and it does so because the brain says we're running faster than we should. We haven't learned how to burn fat at a high heart rate, at a high running pace. So now we're just burning sugar every time we go out the door and run. And because we're burning sugar and we're running out of this stored sugar in our muscles, the brain tells the adrenals to secrete cortisol to go to the muscles, to tear down the muscles, to strip the muscles of a few amino acids it can send to the liver to make glucose, to make more sugar so you can continue your run. And that's the reason every elite marathoner is skinny. None of them, even though they go to the gym and they might lift weights and they might have a heavy leg day and they can't keep muscle on because their bodies will not allow it to happen because running is catabolic. Walking is at the very least anti-catabolic and maybe anabolic in some cases.
And I just love it. I mean, I'm with you all the way. And just having seen the difference in body composition, there is. It speaks it out. I want to finish with your shoes. Just a very quick question for you. I know you're minimal on supplements, is what I was reading, but do you embrace any of the kind of biohacking style supplementation in terms of things that might stimulate autophagy, like things like, or support it, like senolytics or spermidine? Do you take any NAD precursors?
I,
anything that you do to optimize your
no,
longevity
no,
from a
no. I
kind of
mean,
biohacker's point of view?
no. I'm sort of the anti-biohacker, Angela. I'm sort of the one who says, you know, again, how do I feel? I don't measure my sleep. I don't track my steps. I don't measure my HRV. I don't wear a continuous glucose monitor. I literally go moment to moment, day by day on how do I feel. Now, I've spent 30 years honing this intuitive ability to understand that when I do overeat, I know exactly what's happening. I don't need a glucose monitor to tell me that my blood sugar rose because I had 6 bites of dessert instead of 2 bites of dessert. And when it comes to supplements, minimum effective dose. So I'm really about what is the minimum effective dose of any of these supplements? Because I was a guy who, in the 90s, I had one supplement, the Damage Control Master Formula, was the highest potency multivitamin, multimineral, antioxidant supplement on the planet. So I was providing one product that had all of these different things in it. I don't take it anymore because I didn't, at the end of the day, I didn't notice any sort of difference. And so I went the opposite direction. I'm like, what's like, I'm a guy who says, what's the least amount of food I can eat and maintain muscle mass, have all the energy I want, never get sick, and most importantly, not be hungry. So, and hunger is the most important part of that equation. So what's the least amount of food I can eat and not be hungry? Because some people go through life saying, what's the most amount of food I can eat and not gain weight, right? And they can get away with it, but I'm not sure that's the best way to live your life. Well, with supplements, it's what's the least amount of supplements I can take because I know I'm eating well in terms of real food and whole food. So right now I take vitamin D in the wintertime. I get a fair amount of sun in the summer. I take collagen. Collagen is a supplement. And I take vitamin C with the collagen because they work in concert.
Work together. Do you
But
take any creatine? Or
I
you
take creatine. Yeah, I take creatine. Yes.
I love creatine.
I'm still a big fan of building muscle. And as I get older, I'm recognizing that the older we get, every year we lose 1% of our muscle mass, and I don't want that. I want to stem that decline as much as I can. So creatine is a critical factor there. But even with creatine, I don't do it. I do it every day for 6 weeks. Then I take a month or two off because I want my body to readjust to. I don't want it to get used to having creatine every day. And I think the benefits of taking creatine every day sort of level off after a while. And so you take creatine, you lift heavy, you get to a certain level, then the results stop coming. You drop the creatine, your results drop back a little bit, but then when you start creatine up again, you start the process from a new higher baseline. And so that's kind of my thought process on that.
I like the brain benefits of creatine. That's where I noticed the difference.
I mean, I have not really been able to notice the brain differences in creatine one way or the other. I'm pretty hyped as it is. I'm a pretty hyper guy. So, I'm afraid if I take too much creatine, I might. No, I'm not afraid of that. But it's not been
just
anything
feel like
that
a
I've
complete
noticed. But there is good research that it's good for brain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially like I find with like perimenopausal women like myself, it seems to, and if your sleep's impacted, things like that, there seems to be some good research. Let's close on shoes because this is important. This is actually something that I tried many years ago, and I don't think the shoe market in terms of the barefoot style shoe was that great at the time. This is quite some time ago. Something I'm looking into more again now. I mean, I'm barefoot now. I spend most of my day, honestly, barefoot. But I know that you have started, and I think this links very well with the book, a shoe company, Paluva, with your son, I believe, which is magical. Something I'd love to do something like that with one of my children when they grow up. Tell us about that and how wearing these shoes can help us.
Well, so, walking is the quintessential human movement. We should be doing more of it. Ideally, we should be walking barefoot, but it's impractical in today's modern environment, which has concrete and pavement, cobblestones, glass, tile, marble floors everywhere. So lots of hard surfaces, and lots of glass and lots of, thorns and other stuff. So I was an early adopter of the minimalist footwear movement back in 2007. I was one of the early adopters of a 5-toed shoe brand, but I noticed some of the things that they were doing, which I thought they were doing wrong. And they were really kind of unwilling to listen to my recommendations. So I just started my own company with my son about 4 years ago. We 2 years of R&D, wear testing, and we've come up with what I think is the ideal footwear solution for most people. The company's called Paluva, Peluva. On Instagram, it's Wear Paluva. But we've designed a 5-toed shoe. I happen to have one on my desk here. I hadn't planned on this. This is an example of a slip-on shoe that really, a stylish, attractive. It's still it looks like a big, thick. That's a false front there. The shoe is still only 1 centimeter off the ground. So you have the barefoot feel. You have the ground feel. You have the ability to feel every stick you step on, every stone, every cobble, every nook and cranny, every divot. You feel it, and because of the 5-toed nature of this, the toes articulate. They're able to move up and down according to the texture and tilt of the ground you're walking on. Now, ground feel is required for the brain to orchestrate the kinetic chain. When you're barefoot and you walk outside on pavement or concrete, you'll notice that your gait changes, and that every step you take is different depending on if you're stepping on a rock or stepping sideways. And you'll notice that the brain, quite conveniently, by the time you weight that front foot, will scrunch the arch around a rock, or bend the toes to accommodate a change in the terrain, or roll the ankle out a little bit on a tilted, cambered sidewalk or piece of ground to allow the knee to hinge appropriately. If you don't roll that ankle because you're in a stiff shoe, then sometimes the knee gets tweaked because it's working sideways, and it's not supposed to work sideways. The brain needs all of this input, this sensory input, this ground feel, in order to orchestrate a perfect gait, the orchestration of your kinetic chain. Everybody is born with a perfect kinetic chain. So you may say, well, wait, Mark, I have wide feet, I have flat feet, I have duck feet, I have knock knees, I have wide hips, whatever. Doesn't matter. You have a perfect kinetic chain for your body, as long as the brain is able to get the information from the bottoms of your feet and orchestrate the movement of all of those joints and ligaments and bones and tendons in a way that most closely aligns with your own genetic composition. But it requires this ground feel. And a thick, heavy cushion shoe just negates all of that input. That's why runners get injured, because they don't have that ground feel, and they have the cushioning. And that's why I would recommend people walk with minimalist footwear on. And most of these thick, padded cushion shoes today restrict the big toe. The big toe is pushed all the way over. The big toe is the most important component of the foot, if there had to be one. And the big toe is supposed to be, if your feet are supposed to be splayed outwardly. They're not supposed to be cramped together in a
like in women's stilettos.
Women's stilettos. By the way, Angela, don't stop wearing them. They look pretty cute.
They look pretty. They're just hard going downstairs, I tell you.
Hard going downstairs. But when you're not wearing those, take care of your feet. Your feet are your connection with the universe. Your feet are the primary connection you have with the universe, with the ground, with everything you do. Every movement you take, every walk, every run, every jump, every dance move you make starts with your connection and contact with the ground, and literally requires that you have this sensory input, these 10,000 nerve endings that are on the bottom of your feet, to be able to tell the brain exactly how to perfectly orchestrate your kinetic chain. So Paluva shoes, and I have, let's see if I have another version. I have the kind of a smaller version. This is the trainer, right? This is a lightweight trainer.
I like the look of them. That's the thing that's really striking about them. And they look like a shoe as well.
They look like a shoe.
They original like 5 fingers.
Yes, no, they're very stylish. And again, it looks like a shoe. People think, oh my God, that's got a thick sole. No, it doesn't. It has this one has 9 millimeters of total stack height, 1 centimeter. This is a cute little desert boot that we make for women. And I have, we make the same style in men's, and I wear these with blue jeans. This is our Christmas walking around the house slipper. Still got a tag on it, but furry little slipper.
I love it.
So for coming in out of the cold weather, or if you're in the in ski country or snow country, coming in off of ski boots, this is a great shoe. So we've taken this concept that feet are foot health. I think is the new sleep. I think foot health is going to be really a major focus of everyone's attention over the next 5 years. And largely because of what we started this conversation with, which is balance, right? Your feet have to be balanced. They have to be strong in order for you to maintain balance. And big toe strength is a primary factor in this. My good friend and one of our advisors, Courtney Connolly, who's probably the most knowledgeable person in this country about foot health, says that beyond grip strength and VO2 max as a determining factor for longevity, toe strength is one of the great determiners of longevity. Because if your toe strength isn't there, that's when you have the trip and fall and then the whole cascade of bad events. So at any age, I think it's critical to start thinking about foot health, foot strength, foot comfort, shoe comfort. Look, I pretty much started this company because I was sick and tired of wearing shoes that made my feet hurt all day long. It made me feel like I was scrunching my toes together. Could not wait to get home and get barefoot. So having developed this line of shoes, the Paluvas, my biggest, I think the biggest aha moment is if nobody else ever buys my shoes, I'm set for life. I have enough shoes, to carry me through the rest of my life in comfort and with a smile on my face, because I feel like I'm using my toes and my feet the way they're supposed to be used.
I can tell the passion behind it as well. And I mean, anyone who lifts weights, right, knows that the big toe is important.
Well, you know what they say in the weight room, the big toe is also called the great toe. The anatomic name is really the great toe. And in the gym, they say great toe, great ass. And what they mean by that is, in order to engage the glute fully when you're doing leg days, when you're doing squats or lunges or deadlifts, is you have to. That's why people take their shoes off when they're doing those weights, the real serious weightlifters, because they want to engage. They want that big, great toe to splay outwardly and anchor, because that's what engages the glute fully. If you scrunch that together in a regular running shoe or cushion shoe, you don't get to fully engage the glute. And what happens is you do the work. When you do the work, the stabilizer muscles come in, and the glute minimus, the glute medius, and some of these other muscles that you're not necessarily focusing on have to come in and take on the burden. And that's where some of the injuries can happen. And that's where some of the problems arise, which is why, once again, so many weightlifters would rather, up until today, would rather go barefoot. Now a lot of them wear Paluvas in the gym.
Yeah. I need to get myself on those. I mean, gymnasts know this. My daughter's a gymnast, and they have to be barefoot. There's no choice.
Yes.
You can't do gymnastics.
That's a great point, right? Yeah. That is a great point. Why don't gymnasts wear any kind of shoes?
Yeah.
Why don't they wear Capicios? Why don't they wear cute little they don't, because they know that their foot strength, everything they do, emanates from their feet.
Exactly. Amazing. Thank you for that. And thank you for being so generous with your time today. So the book is going to be available January, I think, when this comes out, available everywhere, bookstores, Amazon,
yes.
Born to Walk, and we'll put a link in the show notes. Paluva shoes, do you ship worldwide for those?
We don't yet.
Not
don't
yet.
ship them.
So I can't get them here in the UK.
No, we're looking for UK distribution, and it's unfortunate because we have a lot of interest from the UK.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine. But eventually, hopefully. So for our US listeners and Canada, they can go buy Paluva shoes. We'll link to that as well. And what's the best way to keep up with you? I keep up with your stuff on Instagram. Please share. How can people keep up with everything you're doing, Mark?
So I'm Mark Sisson Primal on Instagram. I am. We have on Instagram, we have Wear Paluva, WEAR Paluva on Instagram for the shoes. The actual shoe site to purchase is paluva.com. And the book is, again, available on Amazon. It's called Born to Walk. And we have there's a website dedicated to it. It's called borntowalkbook.com. And hopefully that's spelled right on the links, borntowalkbook.com. Lots of ancillary material, lots of freebies and videos that support what we're talking about in the book. So give that site a look as well.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much. It's been super fun connecting with you.
Angela.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.